Have you ever looked at your child in the middle of an argument and quietly wondered, where did this resistance come from? Not the kind of resistance that comes from a strong personality, but the kind that feels like a wall. The kind where everything becomes a battle, simple requests turn into arguments, guidance feels like control to them, and connection slowly starts to fade. And if you're honest, it can be painful. Because most parents are not trying to raise a rebellious child. You're trying your best. You're showing up. You're sacrificing. But sometimes without realizing it, certain patterns in everyday parenting can slowly shape a child's behavior in ways we never intended. This isn't about blame. This is about awareness. Because when you understand why rebellion grows, you also learn how to gently shift it. So let's talk about 5 ways parents accidentally raise a rebellious child, and what's really happening underneath the surface. Number 1. Controlling instead of guiding. There's a difference between leadership and control, but in the busyness of parenting, that line can easily blur. Control sounds like, because I said so. You don't have a choice. Do it now or else. And while it may bring quick obedience in the moment, it often creates something deeper over time. Resistance. Here's why. Every child, no matter their age, has a natural psychological need for autonomy. They want to feel like they have a voice, a say, a sense of ownership in their life. When that need is constantly shut down, the child doesn't stop needing control. They just start fighting for it. Sometimes loudly, sometimes silently, but always intentionally. That rebellion you see later, it's often a delayed reaction to feeling controlled for too long. A child who is never allowed to choose eventually chooses to resist. And this doesn't mean you stop setting rules. It means you shift how you present them. Instead of control, offer guidance. Instead of do this now, try, here's what needs to happen. How do you want to do it? It sounds small, but it changes everything. Because when a child feels included, they don't need to fight to be heard. Number 2. Constant criticism instead of connection. Imagine growing up in a space where most of what you hear about yourself is correction. Why did you do it like that? That's not good enough. You always mess things up. Even if it's said with good intentions, over time, a child doesn't just hear the words, they build an identity around them. I'm not good enough. I'll never get it right. No matter what I do, it's wrong. Now here's where it gets deeper. When a child feels constantly criticized, they stop trying to please and start protecting themselves. And sometimes, that protection looks like rebellion. Not because they don't care, but because trying and failing emotionally hurts more than not trying at all. So they push back. They reject instructions. They act like they don't care. But underneath, there's often a child who just feels unseen. What changes this? Connection before correction. It doesn't mean you ignore mistakes. It means you balance them. Catch what they're doing right. Acknowledge effort, not just outcome. Let them feel valued, not just evaluated. Because a child who feels accepted is far more open to being guided. Number 3. Harsh punishment instead of teaching. When a child misbehaves, the natural instinct is to correct it quickly. Raise your voice, take something away, enforce consequences. And yes, boundaries matter. But here's the question. Is the child learning or just reacting? Harsh punishment often teaches one thing very well. But fear doesn't build understanding. It builds avoidance. A child may stop the behavior temporarily, but internally, nothing has changed. And over time, 2 things can happen. Either they become overly fearful and withdrawn, or they become defiant and rebellious. Because once fear loses its power, resistance takes over. True discipline isn't about control. It's about teaching. Helping the child understand why the behavior matters, what they can do differently, how their actions affect others. This requires patience, which isn't always easy. But it creates something far more powerful than obedience. It creates awareness. And a child who understands why doesn't need to rebel against what. Number 4. Not listening to their emotions. Sometimes a child isn't being difficult. They're being overwhelmed. But when emotions show up as anger, crying, or attitude, it's easy to shut it down. Stop crying. It's not a big deal. You're overreacting. And in that moment, the child learns something important. My feelings don't matter here. So what do? They stop expressing emotions in healthy ways and start expressing them through behavior. That behavior might look like talking back, ignoring instructions, pushing boundaries, not because they want to be difficult, but because it's the only way they feel heard. Rebellion in many cases is unexpressed emotion finding a voice. What helps? Listening, even when you don't agree. Let them speak. Acknowledge their feelings. Help them name what they're experiencing. You're not validating bad behavior. You're validating the human behind it. And when a child feels emotionally safe, they don't need to act out to be understood. Number 5, inconsistency in rules and boundaries. This one is subtle, but incredibly powerful. One day, something is allowed. The next day, it's not. One parent says yes, the other says no. Sometimes behavior is ignored. Other times it's punished harshly. From the parent's perspective, it may feel like flexibility, but from the child's perspective, it feels like confusion, and confusion creates insecurity. So what does a child do when boundaries aren't clear? They test them, again and again and again. Not because they're trying to be difficult, but because they're trying to understand where the line actually is. And when that line keeps moving, testing turns into pushing, and pushing turns into rebellion. Children feel safer when boundaries are clear, calm, and consistent. Not strict in a harsh way, but steady in a predictable way. Because structure doesn't limit a child, it actually gives them freedom to feel secure. And here's the truth that matters most. A rebellious child is rarely a bad child. More often, it's a child who is trying to feel heard, feel respected, feel understood, feel in control of their world. And when those needs aren't met in safe ways, they find louder ways to express them. The good news, this is not permanent. Children are incredibly responsive to change. When you shift your approach, even slightly, you start to see a shift in them too. More openness, less resistance, more connection. Not overnight, but over time. So if you recognize yourself in any of these patterns, don't feel discouraged. Feel empowered, because awareness is where change begins. If this message spoke to you, take a moment to reflect. Which of these areas can you gently improve this week? Just one small shift can create a completely different experience for your child. And if you found this helpful, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with another parent who might need this reminder today. Like the video so more people can see it, and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Calm, real, and practical conversations about parenting, relationships, and growth. And always remember, you don't have to be a perfect parent to raise a confident, emotionally healthy child. You just have to be a present one, willing to learn, adjust, and grow. We're in this together.